What happens when a single playful kiss at the office turns into a public reckoning at your own front door? How did my harmless joke end with me staring at legal documents, and my husband, once so quiet, walking away without a word? Can anyone really blame me for wanting to feel alive? Or am I the villain in my own story? I'm Althea Vane, and I never meant for things to spiral this far out of control. The company restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy as I adjusted my blouse and checked my reflection in my phone camera. The after-hours team-building event was exactly what I needed after another monotonous week filing reports and scheduling meetings. At 32, I felt like I was drowning in suburban mediocrity, and tonight felt like my chance to remind everyone, including myself, that I was still vibrant and alive. "Althea, come sit with us," called Jennifer from accounting, patting the empty chair next to Brett Langley, our charismatic company director. My pulse quickened as I made my way over, very aware that my husband Miles was sitting 3 tables away, nursing his beer and checking his phone with that familiar, distant expression. Brett looked up as I approached, his easy smile making my stomach flutter. At 39, he had that confident executive charm that Miles had never possessed. Where my husband was methodical and reserved, Brett was spontaneous and magnetic. "How's our star HR assistant tonight?" Brett asked, his voice warm with just enough attention to make me feel special. "Better now," I replied, settling into the chair, perhaps a bit closer than necessary. This place beats another quiet Friday at home. I caught Miles glancing over, his jaw tightening slightly. Good, I thought. Maybe seeing other people appreciate me would remind him what he had. The evening progressed with rounds of drinks and increasingly animated conversations. I found myself leaning into Brett's jokes, touching his arm when I laughed, feeling more alive than I had in months. Several co-workers had their phones out, capturing the festive atmosphere with videos and photos. "You know what this party needs?" announced Sienna, my younger sister who worked in marketing. She'd been encouraging my fun side all evening, texting me things like, "You deserve to feel appreciated," and "Miles looks so boring over there." "What's that?" Brett asked, his attention making me feel like the center of the universe. "A little team spirit," I declared, emboldened by wine and the admiring looks from around the table. Something to show we're not just corporate drones. Before I could second-guess myself, I leaned over and planted a playful kiss on Brett's cheek, lingering just long enough to make it memorable. The table erupted in cheers and laughter, phones capturing the moment from multiple angles. "Now that's what I call team building," Brett laughed, though I noticed him glance around the restaurant with slight unease. I felt exhilarated, powerful, desired. This was the reaction I'd been craving. People seeing me as fun and spontaneous instead of just another married woman filing paperwork. Then I looked toward Miles's table. He was staring directly at me, his face completely expressionless. Our eyes met for a long moment before he calmly stood up, placed some cash on the table, and walked toward the exit without a word. "Where's your husband going?" asked Tom from sales, following my gaze. "Oh, he's just tired," I said quickly, waving dismissively. "Miles gets overwhelmed at social events. He'll be fine." But even as I said it, something cold settled in my stomach. Miles wasn't the type to make scenes or dramatic exits. His quiet departure felt more ominous than if he'd stormed over and caused a confrontation. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. "You go, girl. Finally showing some personality." Then another notification. Someone had already posted a video of the kiss to the company's informal social media group. In the short clip, I looked confident and playful. Brett appeared surprised but amused, and in the background, you could clearly see Miles's face as he watched it happen. The comments were already starting. "Althea knows how to have fun." "Wish my wife was that spontaneous." "Brett's living the dream." But there were others too. "Isn't she married?" "That's awkward." Her husband's face, though. I quickly closed the app and turned back to the table, But the evening's magic had dimmed. Brett was now engaged in conversation with someone else, and I noticed he'd shifted his chair slightly away from mine. I should probably head home, I announced, gathering my purse. Already? Sienna protested. The night's just getting started. Miles will worry, I lied, knowing he was probably already home, sitting in his study, with that quiet disappointment that was somehow worse than anger. The drive home gave me time to craft my narrative. It was just harmless fun, a silly joke to boost team morale. Miles was being oversensitive, as usual. He never wanted me to have any excitement in my life, never encouraged me to be social or spontaneous. If anything, his reaction proved how much I needed moments like this. By the time I pulled into our apartment complex parking lot, I'd almost convinced myself that I was the victim here. The apartment was dark except for the light under Miles's study door. I found him sitting at his desk, still in his button-down shirt from the restaurant, staring at his laptop screen. "You left early," I said, leaning against the door frame with what I hoped was casual confidence. "I did," he replied without looking up. "It was just a joke, you know. Team building. Everyone was having fun." Now he looked at me, his brown eyes steady and unreadable. "I'm sure they were. You're making this into something it wasn't, Miles. It was innocent, playful. If you say so." His calm responses were infuriating. I wanted him to fight, to show some passion, to give me something to push against. Instead, he just nodded and turned back to his computer. "Are you coming to bed?" I asked. "In a while." I stood there for another moment, waiting for him to say more, to demand an explanation or express his feelings. When he remained silent, I huffed and went to our bedroom, telling myself he'd get over it like he always did. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the image of his face at the restaurant, not angry or jealous, but something else entirely. Something that looked almost like resignation. My phone buzzed again. Another notification from the company social group. The video had been shared 15 more times, and the comments were multiplying. Some supportive, some questioning, some downright inappropriate. I was about to delete the app when I saw a new message from an unknown number. Saw the video. Looks like someone's having fun at work these days. My stomach dropped. If random people were already seeing this, how far had it spread? I heard Miles's study door close and his footsteps in the hallway, but instead of coming to our room, they continued toward the guest bedroom. For the first time that evening, doubt crept in. Maybe I'd miscalculated. Maybe this joke was going to cost more than I'd anticipated. But I pushed the thought away. Miles would calm down, the office gossip would die down, and life would return to normal. It always did. I had no idea that Miles was already 3 steps ahead of me, and that normal was about to become a thing of the past. I woke up Saturday morning to find Miles's side of the bed untouched and the guest room door closed. The apartment felt different somehow, quieter, more tense. I made coffee and checked my phone, discovering that the video from last night had exploded across social media. The company group now had over 200 comments, and someone had shared it to Facebook, where it was being passed around by people I didn't even know. My sister Sienna had reposted it with the caption, "My sister knows how to live. #no regrets. #team spirit." Most comments were harmless enough, but some made my cheeks burn. Lucky boss. Wish I worked there. Her husband must love sharing. I quickly deleted several of the more inappropriate ones, but they kept coming. Worse, people were tagging me in their own posts, dissecting every detail of the 30-second clip. Miles emerged from the guest room dressed in his weekend clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, looking like he was heading out. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Grocery shopping. We're out of milk." "I can come with you." "That's okay, I'll be quick." He grabbed his keys and wallet, moving with that same quiet efficiency he brought to everything. No drama, no accusations, just polite distance that somehow felt worse than a screaming match. After he left, I decided to take control of the narrative. If people were going to talk, I'd give them something better to discuss. I crafted a social media post carefully. Sometimes you need to remind yourself that life is meant to be fun. Last night was exactly what my soul needed. Great friends, great laughs, and the courage to be spontaneous. To everyone sharing the video, thanks for celebrating joy with me. And to the haters, maybe try smiling once in a while. Hashtag live your best life. Hashtag no apologies. Hashtag team building. I posted it across all my platforms, then sat back feeling satisfied. Let people see that I wasn't ashamed or apologetic. I was a confident woman who knew how to have a good time. My phone rang almost immediately. Mom. Althea, honey, I saw your post and the video. Are you sure this was wise? It's just people having fun, Mom. Miles is being dramatic about nothing. Sweetheart, you kissed another man in public while your husband watched. That's not nothing. It was on the cheek, as a joke. God, why is everyone acting like I had an affair? There was a pause. How is Miles handling this? He's sulking, sleeping in the guest room like a child. I'm the one who should be upset. He's making me look bad by acting like this. Maybe you should consider how he feels. I have to go, Mom. I'm getting another call. I hung up and saw Sienna calling. Finally, someone who understood. Girl, you are trending, she laughed. That video has been shared like crazy. You look amazing in it. Thank you, at least someone gets it. Miles is acting like I committed a crime. He's just jealous that you're getting attention. Boring husbands always get weird when their wives remind everyone they're still attractive. Exactly. I'm not some suburban housewife who's supposed to be invisible. I'm allowed to have fun. Absolutely. Don't let him guilt you into apologizing for living your life. After we hung up, I felt vindicated. Sienna was right. Miles was just threatened by seeing me appreciated by other people. He'd gotten comfortable taking me for granted, and last night reminded him that other men found me desirable. By Monday morning, I was ready to face the office with confidence. I dressed carefully in a fitted dress that showed I wasn't hiding from anything, applied my makeup with extra attention, and walked into work with my head high. The reception was mixed. Some co-workers greeted me with knowing smiles and comments like, "How was your weekend?" with obvious subtext. Others seemed awkward, avoiding eye contact or cutting conversations short. Brett was in meetings all morning, which was probably for the best. I needed to let the attention die down before we interacted normally again. But by lunchtime, I realized the situation was more serious than I'd thought. My supervisor, Patricia, called me into her office. Althea, we need to discuss Friday night. It was an after-hours event, I said quickly. Technically not company time. But it involved company personnel and has created workplace disruption. I've had 3 people ask me about appropriate professional boundaries this morning. My stomach sank. It was just team building, harmless fun. I'm not saying it was malicious, but it's caused enough talk that I need to address it. Going forward, please be mindful that your actions reflect on the company, even during social events. Of course, I managed, feeling heat creep up my neck. And Althea, the video has been seen by upper management. Just be aware of that. I spent the rest of the day feeling like everyone was watching me, whispering behind my back. The confidence I'd felt that morning evaporated as I realized how quickly workplace dynamics could shift. When I got home, Miles was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop and a stack of papers. He looked up when I entered, but didn't smile. "How was work?" he asked politely. "Fine," I lied. "How was yours?" "Productive." The conversation died there. He returned to his papers while I microwaved leftovers, the silence stretching uncomfortably between us. "Miles, we need to talk about this. You can't keep giving me the silent treatment forever." "I'm not giving you the silent treatment. I asked about your day." "You know what I mean. You're being cold, distant." He looked up again, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. "I'm processing." "Processing what?" It was a harmless joke that got blown out of proportion by social media. You're acting like I cheated on you. Am I? Yes, you're sleeping in the guest room, barely speaking to me, making me feel like a criminal for having a moment of fun. Miles closed his laptop carefully. Althea, do you understand what that looked like, from where I was sitting? It looked like your wife being social and spontaneous for once instead of invisible. It looked like my wife publicly flirting with her boss while I watched. It looked like she cared more about impressing her co-workers than respecting her marriage. That's a terrible way to interpret it. Then help me understand the right way. Explain to me how kissing another man while cameras roll shows respect for our relationship. I felt cornered, frustrated by his calm logic. You're twisting everything, making it sound calculated when it was just spontaneous fun. Maybe that's the problem. He gathered his papers and headed toward his study, leaving me standing in the kitchen, feeling like I'd lost an argument I didn't even know I was having. That night, I lay in our empty bed scrolling through social media, watching the video's reach expand beyond my control. Someone had created a meme using a screenshot of Miles's face with the caption, "When your wife has team-building exercises." It had been shared hundreds of times. I felt sick. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I just wanted to feel alive, appreciated, noticed. Instead, I'd created a public spectacle that was humiliating my husband and threatening my job. But even as regret crept in, another part of me felt angry. Why should I have to apologize for one moment of spontaneity? Why was everyone acting like I'd committed some unforgivable sin? I heard Miles moving around in the guest room and considered going to him, but pride held me back. If he wanted to make this into a bigger deal than it was, that was his choice. I wasn't going to grovel for forgiveness over something so innocent. I had no idea that 3 doors down, Miles was sitting at the small desk in the guest room, methodically documenting everything that had happened in the past 3 days. The video, the social media posts, the comments, the timeline of events. He'd already screenshot my "no apologies" post before I could delete it later. He'd saved copies of every share, every comment, every piece of digital evidence that showed how our private humiliation had become public entertainment. Miles had always been thorough in his work as an accountant. Now he was applying that same methodical precision to something much more personal, and I was too busy feeling sorry for myself to notice. By Tuesday, the office gossip had reached a fever pitch. I caught fragments of conversations that stopped abruptly when I appeared, and Brett had been mysteriously absent from his usual haunts around the building. When we finally crossed paths near the elevators, his greeting was polite but distant. "Morning, Althea. How's everything going?" "Fine," I replied, hoping for some acknowledgement of our connection. "Quiet week so far." Good. Well, I'm late for a meeting." He stepped into the elevator without inviting me to join him, leaving me standing there feeling foolish and dismissed. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The kiss was meant to create a bond between us, a shared moment of excitement. Instead, he was treating me like a liability. At home, the tension was becoming unbearable. Miles maintained his polite distance, answering direct questions but volunteering nothing. He'd moved more of his belongings to the guest room. Not dramatically, just a gradual migration that made his absence from our bedroom feel permanent. Our 8-year-old daughter Nina was starting to notice. She asked me Tuesday night why Daddy was sleeping in the other room. "He's just tired from work, sweetheart. Sometimes adults need extra space to rest." She accepted this explanation with the trusting innocence of childhood, but I caught her watching us both with confused eyes during dinner. The family dynamic she'd known her entire life was shifting, and she could feel it, even if she couldn't understand it. I decided to take control of the situation by organizing a family dinner for Saturday. If I could get everyone together in a normal social setting, I could prove that Miles was overreacting and that our marriage was solid. I sent out invitations to both sides of the family, framing it as a casual get-together. The responses revealed how deep the divisions had become. Sienna immediately accepted. "Can't wait, need all the drama details." My mother replied cautiously, "Of course, dear, should I bring anything?" But Miles's family was a different story. His mother Janice called me directly. "Althea, I don't think it's appropriate for us to attend a family dinner right now." "Why not? We're still family." "After what happened at your work event, I think you need to focus on repairing your marriage instead of pretending everything is fine." "Nothing happened at the work event. It was a harmless joke that people are blowing out of proportion." "A harmless joke?" Her voice was sharp with disapproval. "You publicly humiliated my son. The whole family has seen that video, Althea. Graham's poker buddies were passing it around like it was entertainment." My face burned. I hadn't considered that the video would reach Miles's extended family, his friends, his professional network. I never meant for it to spread like that. "But you posted about it afterward. You celebrated it. You showed no remorse for embarrassing your husband in front of his colleagues." "I was trying to show that I wasn't ashamed of having fun. At Miles's expense." "That's not fun, Althea. That's cruel." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at the phone with a mixture of anger and shame. Miles's family had always been more traditional than mine, but I'd never expected them to turn against me so completely. When I told Miles about the dinner plans, his response was predictably measured. "Did my parents RSVP?" "They're busy that night." He nodded without surprise. "I figured they might be." "This is ridiculous, Miles. Your mother is treating me like I committed adultery. It was one kiss on the cheek. In public, while I watched, with cameras recording." "Stop saying it like that. You make it sound so calculated and malicious." "How should I say it?" I wanted to scream at his calm rationality. "You should say it like what it was, a spontaneous moment of fun that got misinterpreted by people who don't understand." "Help me understand then. What was fun about it for you?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean? What specifically did you enjoy about that moment? What made it fun?" I struggled to articulate it without sounding shallow or hurtful. "It was spontaneous, exciting. It made me feel alive." "And kissing me doesn't make you feel alive?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" I felt trapped by his questions, like he was forcing me to admit things I didn't want to examine. "I meant that sometimes I need to feel appreciated by people other than just you. Sometimes I need to feel like I'm more than just a wife and mother." "And you felt appreciated when you kissed Brett?" "Yes," I admitted, then immediately regretted it. Miles was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, but somehow more final. "I see." Saturday's dinner was a disaster from the start. My mother arrived early, clearly nervous about the family tension she'd walked into. Sienna came with her husband Oscar, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Miles's absence of family support was glaring. Nina seemed excited to have everyone over, but even she picked up on the undercurrents. She kept looking between Miles and me, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Sienna, never one to read a room, brought up the video almost immediately. "So I have to ask, has Brett said anything about your little moment? Because he looked pretty into it from where I was sitting." Miles set down his fork carefully. "Sienna, maybe we could talk about something else." "Oh, come on, Miles. It's not like it's a secret. The whole internet has seen it by now." "Sienna," my mother warned quietly. "What? I'm just saying Althea looked amazing. Confident and fun. It's nice to see her letting loose for once instead of playing the perfect suburban housewife." The silence that followed was deafening. Nina looked confused. Oscar studied his plate intently, and my mother appeared to be praying for divine intervention. Miles stood up. "Excuse me, I need some air." He walked out to the balcony, leaving me to face the awkward stares of my remaining family members. "Nice going, Sienna," I snapped. "What? I'm being supportive. Someone should remind you that you're allowed to have fun without asking permission." "She's married, Sienna," my mother said quietly, "with a child, Actions have consequences. Oh, please. It was one little kiss. Miles is being a drama queen. I wanted to defend my husband, but part of me agreed with Sienna. He was making this harder than it needed to be, turning a minor incident into a marriage crisis. The dinner ended early, with everyone making polite excuses to leave. After I'd cleaned up and put Nina to bed, I found Miles in his study again, surrounded by papers and files. I'm sorry about Sienna. She doesn't think before she speaks. She said what you were thinking. That's not true, isn't it? She said you looked confident and fun, that you were letting loose instead of playing the perfect wife. That's how you see it too, isn't it? I couldn't deny it entirely. I felt good in that moment. Is that so wrong? Not wrong, just incompatible with being married to me. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. He wasn't angry or hurt anymore. He seemed resolved. What does that mean? It means I understand now. You need something I can't give you. You need excitement, spontaneity, public attention. You need to feel desired by men who aren't your husband. Miles, that's not... It's okay, Althea. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just sad that it took me this long to see it clearly. He gathered his papers and headed toward the guest room, leaving me with the unsettling feeling that something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't the hurt, confused Miles I'd been dealing with for the past week. This was someone who'd made a decision. As I got ready for bed alone again, I noticed that more of his personal items had disappeared from our bedroom. His favorite books, his cologne, the photo of us from our honeymoon, all gone. I told myself he was just being dramatic, that he'd come around once the social media attention died down. But deep in my stomach, a cold knot of fear was growing. I had no idea that Miles had spent the week consulting with a divorce attorney, documenting everything, and preparing for a future that didn't include me. While I'd been focused on managing the public narrative, he'd been quietly building a legal case. The man I'd dismissed as boring and predictable was about to show me just how methodical and thorough he could be when he set his mind to something, and I was completely unprepared for what was coming. The following week brought a new kind of tension. Miles had become almost ghostly in his presence, polite, functional, but emotionally absent. He helped Nina with homework, handled his share of household tasks, and answered when spoken to, but the man I'd married seemed to have disappeared entirely. What unsettled me most was his newfound efficiency. He'd always been organized, but now he moved through life with the precision of someone executing a plan. He changed passwords on shared accounts, citing security concerns. He started locking his study and carrying the key with him. When I asked about it, he simply said he had sensitive client information that needed protection. I decided to take matters into my own hands. On Thursday, while Miles was at work and Nina was at school, I tried to access his laptop, password protected. His phone, same thing. Even his desk drawers were locked now. The man who'd never hidden anything from me in 10 years of marriage had suddenly become Fort Knox. Frustrated and increasingly paranoid, I drove to the office hoping to catch Brett alone. I needed to know where we stood, whether he was interested in exploring what had started with that kiss. Maybe if I could build something real with him, Miles's cold treatment would hurt less. I found Brett in the parking garage, heading to his car. Brett, do you have a minute? He looked around nervously before answering. Sure, but I'm running late for a lunch meeting. I just wanted to clear the air about last Friday. I hope things aren't weird between us. Weird? No, not weird. Just complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. It was just a moment of connection between two people who enjoy each other's company. Brett shifted uncomfortably. Althea, look, you're great and I'm flattered, but that kiss wasn't smart for either of us. Smart? You're married. I'm your boss. The video is still circulating. HR is already asking questions about workplace relationships. My heart sank. So you regret it? I regret that it happened in public with cameras rolling. I regret that your husband had to see it. I regret that it's created problems for you. What if it hadn't been public? What if we'd been alone? He studied my face for a long moment. Althea, go home to your family. Work on your marriage. This thing between us, whatever you think it is, it's not worth destroying your life over. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking garage feeling foolish and rejected. The man I'd risked my marriage for wasn't even interested in pursuing anything further. That evening, I decided to search Miles's study more thoroughly. I waited until he was giving Nina a bath, then slipped into his locked sanctuary with a bobby pin. It took several tries, but I managed to open his desk drawer. What I found made my blood run cold. A manila folder labeled Evidence in Miles's precise handwriting. Inside, printed screenshots of the video from multiple angles, copies of every social media post I'd made, a timeline of events with dates and times, and most chilling of all, a log of my recent behavior that went back months. March 15th, I mentioned Brett's great sense of humor 3 times during dinner. April 2nd, I wore new dress to company party, spent entire evening talking to male colleagues. April 20, I came home 45 minutes late from work drinks, smelled like cologne. The entries continued right up to the present. May 10th, kiss occurred at company event, 9:47 p.m. according to video timestamp. May 11th, a posted celebratory social media message with hashtag no apologies hashtag. May 12th, I showed no remorse when confronted, blamed me for being oversensitive. My hand shook as I read through months of documented observations. He'd been watching me, cataloguing every interaction, every late night, every moment I'd felt alive and appreciated by someone other than him. At the bottom of the folder was a business card, Davidson and Associates Family Law. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly shoved everything back into the drawer, but I couldn't get it locked again in time. When Miles appeared in the doorway, I was standing behind his desk with the bobby pin still in my hand. "Looking for something?" he asked calmly. I needed a pen. From my locked drawer, there was no point in lying. I needed to know what you were planning. And now you do. Miles, that folder, that's not what you think. You're misinterpreting everything. Am I? Tell me which part I got wrong. You make it sound like I was having an affair. Those were just normal social interactions. Were they? Because from where I was sitting, it looked like a pattern of behavior leading up to last Friday night. You've been spying on me for months. I've been paying attention to my wife for months. I should have done it sooner. I felt cornered, desperate. This is paranoid behavior, Miles. Documenting conversations, keeping logs like I'm some kind of criminal. You're right, it is paranoid, but it's also thorough and accurate. What are you planning to do with all this? Whatever I need to do to protect myself and Nina. The way he said our daughter's name made my stomach clench. Protect her from what? From me? From the fallout of your choices. From having her mother's public behavior become playground gossip. From watching her parents' marriage fall apart because one of them needed excitement more than stability. I never meant for any of this to happen. But you're not sorry it did, are you? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say yes, to apologize and beg for forgiveness, but something in me rebelled against giving him that satisfaction. I'm sorry it hurt you, I said finally, but I'm not sorry for feeling alive for once. Miles nodded as if I'd confirmed something he'd suspected. That's what I thought. He walked over to his desk, calmly relocked the drawer, and pocketed the key. I'll be sleeping at my parents' house tonight. Nina can stay here with you. Miles, wait. We'll talk more when I'm ready. Right now, I need some space to think. He packed an overnight bag with the same methodical efficiency he brought to everything else, kissed Nina goodnight without explanation, and left me standing in our apartment, feeling like my world was crumbling. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past few months. Had I really been as obvious as his log suggested? Had I been emotionally cheating without admitting it to myself? But even as doubt crept in, anger followed close behind. He'd been watching me, documenting me, building a case against me like I was some kind of suspect. What kind of husband treated his wife like a criminal investigation? I grabbed my phone and called Sienna. He's been spying on me for months, I told her, keeping a log of everything I do, everyone I talk to. It's creepy and controlling. That's insane. What right does he have to monitor you like that? Exactly. And now he's threatening to use it all against me somehow. You need to fight back. Don't let him make you the villain here. How? Document his behavior. Show that he's been psychologically abusing you with surveillance and manipulation. Turn it around on him. After we hung up, I felt energized by righteous indignation. If Miles wanted to play games with evidence and documentation, I could play too. I started making my own list of his controlling behaviors, his emotional distance, his refusal to support my social life. But even as I wrote, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that I was missing something important. Miles wasn't the type for games or manipulation. He was methodical, yes, but also fair. If he was building a case against me, it was because he believed he needed protection. The question was, protection from what? I was about to find out that Miles's preparations went far deeper than a simple folder of evidence. While I'd been focused on managing social media and workplace gossip, he'd been consulting with lawyers, financial advisors, and family counselors. The quiet, predictable husband I'd taken for granted was about to show me just how dangerous an underestimated man could be when he finally decided to act. Miles returned the next evening with a calmness that was more unsettling than anger would have been. He helped Nina with her homework, made dinner, and went through the motions of normal family life, but there was a finality to his movements that made my skin crawl. "We need to talk," I said after Nina went to bed. "I know. Miles, I understand you're hurt, but this can't continue. We have a daughter to think about." "I am thinking about her. That's why I'm being so careful about how I handle this." "Handle what exactly?" He sat across from me at the kitchen table, his hands folded with that same methodical precision he brought to everything. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. About us, about what I want, about what's best for Nina. And I think we both know this marriage isn't working anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. Because of one mistake, one moment of poor judgment. Because of a pattern of behavior that culminated in public humiliation. Because when I tried to talk to you about it, you showed no remorse. Because you told me you felt more alive kissing another man than you do being married to me. I didn't say that. You said the kiss made you feel alive. You said you needed to feel appreciated by people other than just me. You said you weren't sorry for feeling that way. I hated how accurately he remembered my words, how he could throw them back at me with such quiet precision. I was upset. I was feeling attacked. You were being honest, maybe for the first time in months. "So, what are you saying? You want a divorce?" "I'm saying I want you to be happy, and I don't think you can be happy being married to someone boring and predictable like me." There was something almost gentle in his voice that made this worse than if he'd been angry. "Miles, you're not boring." "Yes, I am. I'm exactly what you said I am. I'm quiet, methodical, predictable. I like routine and stability. I don't make you feel alive or excited or appreciated in the ways you need." "I never said I didn't appreciate you. You didn't have to. It was obvious in how you lit up around Brett, how you craved attention from other men, how you felt the need to prove you were still desirable to people who weren't your husband." Each word was delivered without malice, just matter-of-fact observation that cut deeper than accusations would have. "What about Nina? What about our family?" "Nina will be fine. Kids are resilient, and she'll be better off with two parents who are honest about who they are than with two parents pretending to be happy." "I'm not pretending. I love you, Miles. I love our family." "I believe you do, but you love the idea of excitement and spontaneity more. You love feeling desired and appreciated by new people more. and that's not something I can compete with. I felt panic rising in my chest. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. He was supposed to be angry, demanding, giving me something to fight against. Instead, he was being understanding and reasonable, which somehow made everything worse. So you're just giving up, not even willing to try counseling or working through this? I've been trying for months, Althea. Every time you came home late, every time you talked about Brett, every time you seemed more interested in your phone than our conversation. I tried being supportive, giving you space, trusting that you'd remember what we had together. And now? Now I realize I was asking you to be someone you're not, and that's not fair to either of us. I stared at him across the table, this man I'd been married to for 10 years, and realized I was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not boring or predictable, but steady and thoughtful. Not passive, but patient. Not weak, but strong enough to let go of something that was hurting him. What happens now? Now we figure out how to do this with as little damage to Nina as possible. I've already spoken to a lawyer about custody arrangements and property division. My blood ran cold. You've already seen a lawyer? Last week. I wanted to understand my options. Without talking to me first? Althea, I tried talking to you first, multiple times. You made it clear that you weren't interested in changing your behavior or examining your choices. So you went behind my back and started divorce proceedings. I gathered information. There's a difference. But it didn't feel different. It felt like betrayal, like he'd been planning my destruction while I thought we were just having a rough patch. I can't believe you'd do this without even trying to work things out. What would you like to work out? Do you want to promise you'll never flirt with other men again? Never seek attention or excitement outside our marriage? Never feel the need to prove you're still desirable? I opened my mouth to say yes, but the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. I didn't want to promise those things. I didn't want to go back to feeling invisible and unappreciated. I thought so, he said quietly. Miles, please, can't we try counseling? Can't we at least attempt to save our marriage? For Nina's sake? For all our sakes? He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Okay, we can try counseling, but I have conditions. What conditions? Complete honesty. No more social media posts about our relationship. No more contact with Brett outside of necessary work interactions. And you have to genuinely want to save our marriage, not just avoid the consequences of divorce. I nodded eagerly. Yes, all of that. I want to save our marriage. But even as I said it, I wondered if I was lying. Did I want to save our marriage, or did I just want to avoid the public humiliation of divorce? Did I love Miles, or did I just love the security and stability he provided? Okay, he said. I'll call some therapists tomorrow. He stood to clear the dishes, and I felt a moment of relief. We were going to work on this. We were going to try. I had no idea that Miles had already filed preliminary paperwork with his attorney. That the counseling was just one more step in his methodical approach to ending our marriage with minimal legal complications. That while I thought I was buying time to fix things, he was actually documenting my willingness to try therapy for the custody evaluation. The man I'd underestimated for 10 years was playing chess while I was playing checkers, and I was about to discover just how many moves ahead he'd been thinking. The marriage counseling lasted exactly 3 sessions. Dr. Martinez tried to create a safe space, but Miles and I were speaking different languages. I spoke of feeling invisible, unappreciated. Miles acknowledged he could have been more attentive. In the second session, we dissected the kiss. I called it overblown social media drama. Miles agreed the public humiliation hurt everyone. By the third, Dr. Martinez cut deeper. Althea, when you kissed Brett, what were you hoping for? Spontaneity. To feel noticed. Alive. And if he'd reciprocated romantically? I glanced at Miles, his calm gaze steady. Maybe, I whispered. Miles spoke quietly. She would have had an affair. The only reason she didn't is Brett wasn't interested. Dr. Martinez asked if that was accurate. I couldn't lie anymore. I don't know. Maybe. That was our last session. Miles moved his things out that night, methodical, undramatic. By morning, the bedroom felt like a guest room. I tried everything: his favorite dinners, family outings, recreating our early days. He participated politely, present but absent. 3 weeks later, Nina asked why Daddy no longer slept with Mommy. Miles answered gently, "Grown-ups need space sometimes." When she asked about divorce like her friend Tommy's parents, his pause said everything. After she slept, I confronted him. "She needs stability, not limbo." "You're right," he said. "She does." The next morning, divorce papers arrived at my office. Miles had documented everything: timelines, texts complaining about his boring nature, fantasies about Brett, witness statements from the restaurant. The custody proposal positioned him as the stable parent. Primary custody to him, me with every other weekend and one evening. He'd moved out while I was at work. Nina was at his parents' for the weekend. His note: fair terms, modifications through lawyers. Sorry it came to this. I drove to his parents' house in panic. He pushed Nina on the swing while his family watched from the porch. "We need to talk," I said. "Not here." "You can't decide this alone." "I'm following the proposed arrangement. You have 2 weeks to respond." "Why save the marriage?" he asked. "Because you love me, or because divorce is inconvenient?" The question paralyzed me. I couldn't answer truthfully. He returned to Nina. "Grandma made cookies." I stood alone in the backyard, watching my family walk away. 2 weeks later, in the courthouse, we signed. Miles looked calm, professional. I signed with shaking hands. On the steps, he paused. "I hope you find the excitement you need." "What if it was you all along?" "Then you would have chosen it." He walked away. Miles kept primary custody of Nina, the house, his dignity. I got a 1-bedroom apartment, limited visitation, and the lesson I'd paid everything to learn: never underestimate the quiet man who loves you enough to prepare for your betrayal. The kiss that promised life cost me mine.